LaVoy Finicum.
And how do you spell that?
LaVoy Finicum.
These unconstitutional land transactions that you talked about. How far back historically would you
The first thing you look at is who is upon the land. The person who's up on the land has three things to have property rights: claim it, use it, defend it. Those who are currently up on the land has defended it. That is the first and most important, or that is the most important thing. You must be willing to defend your rights. So we protect those who have done that. And then you go back anywhere, there's myriads and myriads of transactions that have transferred over time this land into the federal government here.
So long as it remains safe to do so. So long as it remains safe to plead it. So long as it remains safe to do so. So long as it remains safe to do so.
Stole the money from Washington.
So long as it remains safe.
Well, is the federal government plotting a huge land grab? Republican Utah Congressman Rob Bishop claims that 13 million acres, maybe even more, all throughout the West are at stake. And he says he has documents from the Department of Interior to prove it.
Carrie and Mary Dan are two Native Americans. They are members of the Shoshone tribe. The Shoshone tribe in 1863 signed a treaty saying that they had access to 26 million acres of federal land, or of land, in Nevada, Idaho, and Utah. In the 1970s, the government seized that land and put $26 million into a checking account that they said was for the Shoshones. That was in 79. The Shoshones said, no, we don't want the money. We'll keep the land. And Mary and her sister went out to graze cattle on this now being run by the BLM. BLM hit them with fines totaling $3 million in 1998. They said, wait a minute, this is our land. And then the federal government sent 40 agents from the BLM to descend on Dan's ranch in September, heavily armed and fortified with helicopters. And they confiscated 232 cattle from these two Native American women and sold them to help pay off their $3 million fine. The sister and their supporters argue that their tribe never legally gave away these range lands, though the federal government controls 85% of Nevada. They contend it has no legitimate title to the land. So now, in 2003, the federal government began seizing large numbers of their livestock. I think, the answer sort of answers it. So the question sort of answers itself. I guess it's more rhetorical than anything else. But land is...
The part that really caught me more than any of it was the fact that you may be losing your home, the home that your grandfather lived in and has been handed down to you, where your children are now living. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did they decide that home was now going to be their property?
Growing concern tonight over the feds reportedly considering a, quote, massive new land grab. This one in Texas. Less than 2 weeks ago, we watched federal agents face off against a Nevada rancher and his supporters over grazing rights. Now some Texas ranchers say the Bureau of Land Management is trying to seize their property as part of another proposed land grab, this one of 90,000 acres. Rancher Teddy Henderson says the land is his fair and square.
Congressman Bishop is kind enough to join us now to talk about. It's great to have you today.
Thanks for being here.
So let's talk about this potential land grab issue. You found out through an internal memo that was within the Department of Interior, initially leaked, missing some pages. You found those missing pages. What about that has you concerned about the federal government trying to get its hands on some land out west?
Well, first of all, we have not received all the documents yet. We received the first set of documents. There's still more that have been promised to us that are not yet come. And what they show is that even though this government already owns 1 out of every 3 acres in America, and disproportionately in the West, they still want to buy more land, they want to control private property around it, and they want to do it even if Congress does not okay it. In fact, the documents were how to go around Congress to implement this kind of plan. What this means for the West particularly is a stopping of our economy, more jobs will be lost. Public education, which requires property tax as well as resource taxes, would be vastly hurt in the West. It's a devastating concept, and especially when the discussion was all about how do we do it even if Congress says no.
This is Corey. Who's Houston? Houston, like Texas. And Corey and I went around, but showed us where those bulls were that BLM's were responsible for their execution. And then this site, which we didn't get into until BLM left. And that's what we're doing. This is the mass grave where the genocide of the Bundy's herd. The expectation is that there's going to be 30 or so maybe head of cattle in here.
And take a picture of that and Facebook it right now. And we need to take the Wi-Fi and turn it on in the truck, because if somebody shows up out here and tries to confiscate our camera, it's already out.
Well, here's the issue. We've got BLM went in and lit fire along the hillside here by the dump, but there's nobody here. It would be easy with a couple of guys with shovels right now to put this out, and we'd have a good fire break, but when the wind hits it, it's going to carry it right on along the hill and down to French Glen, which is right there. So, and if it creeps away from the hill, obviously in the foreground, there's a lot of fuel.
How can BLM come in and say, hey, this isn't yours, even though it was patented from the state? You've always paid taxes on it. Our family's paid taxes for over 100 years on this place. We've got a deed to it, but yet they walked in and said it wasn't ours.
I suppose you have a deed for this land? All signed, legal and proper.
But it's only going to be Bundy and his son.
That's it. It's the people or not, and you guys need to leave.
Okay.
You need to leave. That's the
I'm telling you, you need to de-escalate the situation. I'm imploring upon you responsibility.
This is legit private property. I mean, they have the deed. They've had the deed. It's been in the family for generations, and they've paid taxes on it this entire time. And the Bureau of Land Management thinks that they can come in here with these new regulations and claim this land for what purpose? I'm not sure.
I'm not a coward. I'll fight for what belongs to me. If need be, I'll kill her.
We are a country that people should follow the law, would follow the law, would follow the law. And I think that we are a country that people should follow the law.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Money from Washington to acquire it. I stole the money from Washington to acquire it.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Because we're the bad guys.
So long as it remains safe to do so. So long as it remains safe to do so.
This is your world, and the
scoundrel. Our people are settling this valley to the mountains on land legally bought and paid for. No bandit can run us off.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as
It's going to substantially change the border in Texas as well. It's bizarre.
It's strange to think that yet another dispute is popping up over, the ranch and where the boundaries are, right on the wake of the Bundy Ranch thing.
One of those people happened to come out, and we got some comments from him about what it was like to go through a checkpoint. He's got property that is on either side of the wildlife refuge, so he's having to go back and forth through these areas. This is what he had to say.
You ever had the FBI point a gun at you before?
I've never had anybody point a gun at me before.
Did they point guns at you?
Can you need to describe?
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Well, we're learning more now about the aftermath of that armed standoff at a Nevada ranch. The Bureau of Land Management said that the purpose of that cattle roundup was to save an endangered tortoise. But shocking new video captured by our cameras shows the destruction left behind has seriously damaged that fragile habitat.
Or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined.
You got a water truck and stuff, and the grader's building a fire line, and they're building a fire all the way around it. Yeah. And there's the flaming. Upwind of us. Yeah, and there's the smoke coming right out. Well, John's taking pictures right now, and he said that they told him they're going to torture all the way around to the C-Bar C Road, and Noosewander's cows are fence-cornered up down there right now.
What belong to the feds? To the feds. And it doesn't belong to the feds. To the feds.
So will I, Mr. Sullivan. So will I.
You saw when you came through the checkpoint?
Well, I came through both checkpoints, but when we came up to the checkpoint, the man came on the loudspeaker and told us to stop and to get out and have our photo ID. And they approached us with guns on us.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Was there a sniper, did you notice?
Well, yeah, there was a guy sitting on top of a vehicle with a round.
You order these people off your land, Benjamin. If they refuse, call out your hands, mount, ride, and drive them.
I don't know what was happening.
It must have been pretty alarming when you saw that.
We just don't expect it in our lives. We're Americans. I mean, I feel like I'm in Africa or something.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in Africa and had checkpoints, and it's scary. You never know if you're getting through.
Benjamin, I still say you're avoiding the main issue. And that's an easy thing to do when the duty is an unpleasant one.
What do you consider the main issue, Colonel?
These people are trespassers. That's the main issue. No matter what they say, no matter what rights they claim, they're trespassers. And you've got to treat them as such.
They're still lighting, burning fences, power poles, you name it. This is the fire that would endanger French Glen. There's still nobody around. This guy down the road told us they didn't have any resources to put it out.
Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
That we've gotten from the Department of Interior, their explanation for this. We have a part of that we want to show you. They say the preliminary internal discussion draft, referring to this memo, reflects some brainstorming discussions within BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, but no decisions have been made about which areas, if any, might merit more serious review and consideration. They say they're trying to be wise stewards of the land. Is that a good enough explanation for you?
Well, Gretchen, you know, that is at the root of this dispute. Move your cattle because they're threatening the desert tortoise, and a federal court gave the BLM the authority to seize and impound Bundy's cattle. But the order doesn't say the agency could, as this video shows, destroy his water tanks, water lines, and fences. Bundy also blames the BLM for allegedly killing 2 prize bulls. One shot 5 times, the other allegedly while in a holding pen. Now, BLM trucks also appear to have run over a tortoise den during the operation.
This isn't helping the desert tortoise. In fact, when we were over there, you saw where they backed right over and crushed down a tortoise burrow. I mean, how's that conservation?
Remain safe to do so.
Was there a sniper, did you notice?
Well, yeah, there was a guy sitting on top of a vehicle with a round, I would call it a sniper.
From the private property rights standpoint.
I don't know what.
Gary lost 11 already. They're just about to burn that outfit up. Nobody's there. They lit the fire and moved right on.
Pretty alarming when you saw that.
We just don't expect it in our lives. We're mad.
Land that has been privately owned for generations. Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott daring the feds to come in and take it. How now? First on Fox, the state's Republican governor on this Fed fight. Rick Perry with us now. Governor, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you, Stuart. Thank you.
Sounds like a dare from the Attorney General. Come and get it. That's a challenge, isn't it?
Greg Abbott is a very powerful and thoughtful Attorney General who's obviously going to be the next governor of the state of Texas, and he is on the right side of this issue, not just for the people of the state of Texas. He's on the right side of this issue.
They're determined they're going to burn everybody out. They're lighting it up here. Again, got Jimmy and Gary and those guys right downwind of where these guys are lighting fire again.
We're in western United States. We're good people. We're easy to get along with. We don't create trouble. This is alarming.
We'll proceed legally. I'll see my lawyer.
Some money from Washington to...
They're trespassers. They're stealing your land. Thieves!
So long as it remains safe to do so.
This isn't the attention we want. And we're stewards. My friends are good people. We run good ranches. We take care of the desert. We're making improvements. I mean, major steps.
These are tough, private people. They fought to get this far, and they'll fight to stay.
Then fight.
Some of them would be killed.
You've got a right to protect your land. If they force you to it, your hands are clean.
They want to run people off of the land. They want to lock it up. They don't want people in the cities to have access to these parks either.
Are we going to go relitigate every piece of private property that we've got in this country because we have a federal government that's out of control?
The fact that somebody was killed out here, what do you think about it getting to that point?
That scares me. I mean, I can't believe that it could have been killed. I just can't believe it. Just think about it.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
There's no reason to be violent. From what we talked to the ranchers, these guys were not trying to be violent. From what we heard.
Some of us would be killed. What comfort clean hands then?
There's risk from the day a man's born.
In this YouTube video from February of last year, Justice appears to discover that the Powder House Gulch Road, which he describes as an old mining road, was unceremoniously destroyed by the federal government.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Justice says the road itself predates the state of Colorado. Zoomed-in video of shots of the road show large piles of debris, concrete, and rocks blocking the path. Justice organized a group of locals from nearby Pitkin to remove the debris and restore the road without permission of the forest rangers. Following a morning appearance on his radio show, Justice was met by the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, as well as the FBI and U.S. Marshals. The officials arrested Justice on suspicion that he tried to build a road on BLM land after it was closed to the public. He is scheduled to appear in court tomorrow morning, and who knows if the outcome will be another BLM takeover of public lands.
Have the deed to it. It was given to them. The Bureau of Land Management is trying to argue that the state of Texas had no right to give deed to these ranchers. Well, I beg to differ with this. I mean, this is a state issue, and again, this is a bureaucratic entity that is trying to supplant state sovereignty. And states still have sovereignty in these United States, and the federal government and the President's Bureau of Land Management wants to completely ignore this.
Now, I've read in an article that the BLM has told you that the deed to your property should have never been issued. Is that true?
That is correct.
And what are they? What's their precedence in saying that?
They said that just Texas had no legal standing to provide a deed for that property, that this has been BLM property since the Louisiana Purchase.
Well, the BLM wasn't an entity at that point, was it?
No.
This is the deal, and it's not a good one. So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
But what were we doing New Year's Eve? We're in the office trying to get this stupid thing closed.
And I think that we are
supply an amount of copper roughly equivalent to 25% of the U.S. demand. Now, at its core, this bill will facilitate access to the largest copper ore deposit in North America.
They've got 4 other pits like the one they want to do here.
Could exceed $60 billion over the course of mine operations.
And once they're in power, once they're in a position, they can't be stopped. They don't care. Then it's done.
3,700 direct and indirect jobs annually.
They'll find they made the same promises in Chile, and Chile didn't get it. They made the same promises in Indonesia. Indonesia didn't get it. They made the same promises in Madagascar, and Madagascar didn't get it.
Likewise, it will provide protections for Native Americans to continue traditional gatherings and ceremonies after the land exchange has been completed, so long as it remains safe to do so. So long as it remains safe to do so.
I stole the money from Washington.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
I stole the money from Washington to acquire it.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Because we're the bad guys. We come in and we take this land, and we always take it for less than it's worth.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
Because we're the bad guys. We come in and we take this land.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
And we always take it for less than it's worth.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
But what were we doing New Year's Eve? We're in the office trying to get this stupid thing closed.
This smells awful.
The State Department, when it was under Hillary's control, signed off on a deal that allowed the Russians to buy one of America's biggest uranium mines.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
This as money continued to flow into the Clinton Foundation, and a lot of money too.
So long as it remains safe to do so.
And I think that we are a country that people should follow the law.
Shred of evidence because they shredded everything. Remember those 30,000 emails that were on a server?
This is the deal, and it's not a good one. So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
So for people who are concerned about it, I just want to leave them with this, because the Oklahoma BLM issued a statement on this, and I want to put people at ease. This is what they said. The need for the Oklahoma Field Office Resource Management Plan is to respond to the new policies, including but not limited to energy, demand for limited resources, appropriate protection of sensitive resources, increases in conflict between competing resource values and land uses, and other issues that have surfaced since approval of the existing RPMs. The overall objective of the OFO RMP planning effort is to provide a collaborative planning approach that assists the BLM in updating the management decisions of the current RPMs. You got it? Good.
ES filter, it sounds like there's something on that land that they want. That's what I hear.
Don't worry about a thing. That clear it right up. Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, that's bureaucratic doublespeak.
On similar parcels where Native American tribes claim like original use and defense.
Those who are upon the land, who have defended and own it, they need to be protected first. You must own, you must control, you must claim, you must defend.
Do you think that treaty with the U.S. government to exchange land?
Have any of you followed the Dan sisters in Ruby Valley? Are you familiar with that?
What do you think is important about that?
Okay, the Ruby Valley, and let me tell you about this. The Dan sisters, I believe they were Arapaho Indians, okay? They had claimed their land by treaty. They were holding it, and they had continuous beneficial use. They didn't get pushed off. They held it. And then guess what? They weren't signing their mandatory terms and conditions with the BLM. Look this up. Research it. I think 2002. In comes the BLM. And in comes the BLM. Choppers, manpowers, just like the Bundys. Successfully moved them off. Where were we? Where was I? I should have been there with those Paiutes, those Arapahos. I should have defended them. But now they're gone. Who owns it? Who controls it? The BLM.
Inherently and historically, opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
Do they mean peace, or do they mean we just want to be left in peace? There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. But they've been a little more explicit in the past. And among themselves, and all of the things I now will quote have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the President as our moral teacher and our leader. And he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy. Now, we have no better example of this than government's involvement in the farm economy over the last 30 years. Since 1955, the cost of this program has nearly doubled. 1/4 of farming in America is responsible for 85% of the farm surplus. 3/4 of farming is out on the free market and has known a 21% increase in the per capita consumption of all its produce. You see that 1/4 of farming? That's regulated and controlled by the federal government. In the last 3 years, we've spent $43 in the feed grain program for every dollar bushel of corn we don't grow. Senator Humphrey last week charged that Barry Goldwater, as president, would seek to eliminate farmers. He should do his homework a little better, because he'll find out that we've had a decline of 5 million in the farm population under these government programs. He'll also find that the Democratic administration has sought to get from Congress extension of the farm program to include that 3/4 that is now free. He'll find that they've also asked for the right to imprison farmers who wouldn't keep books as prescribed by the federal government. The Secretary of Agriculture asked for the right to seize farms through condemnation and resell them to other individuals. And contained in that same program was a provision that would have allowed the federal government to remove 2 million farmers from the soil. At the same time, there's been an increase in the Department of Agriculture employees. There's now 1 for every 30 farms in the United States. And still, they can't tell us how 66 shiploads of grain headed for Austria disappeared without a trace, and Billy Solestis never left shore. Every responsible farmer and farm organization has repeatedly asked the government to free the farm economy. But who are farmers to know what's best for them? The wheat farmers voted against a wheat program. The government passed it anyway. Now the price of bread goes up, the price of wheat to the farmer goes down. Meanwhile, back in the city, under urban renewal, the assault on freedom carries on. Private property rights so diluted that public interest is almost anything a few government planners decide it should be. In a program that takes from the needy and gives to the greedy, we see such spectacles as in Cleveland, Ohio, a $1.5 million building completed only 3 years ago must be destroyed to make way for what government officials call a more compatible use of the land.